Have you ever stood at the edge of something new? Something that could change your entire life, but felt completely paralyzed by fear? Maybe it was a conversation you knew you needed to have. Maybe it was a leap you were too scared to take. Or maybe it was love, real love, and the fear of losing it before it even began. If you've ever felt that deep, gnawing fear inside you, the kind that keeps you up at night, replaying what ifs, and then this video is for you. Because today I'm sharing 5 secrets to kill fear. Not just push through it, but eliminate it from the roots. Before we get into it, I want to ask you to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and stick around till the very end, because I promise you, one of these 5 secrets could completely shift your love life, your confidence, and your peace of mind. Alright, let's dive in. Secret number 1, fear dies in the face of truth. Let me ask you something real. How many times has fear held you back from something you knew you wanted? A relationship, a career move, telling someone how you really feel, doing something bold that could change your life forever. It's strange, isn't it? How something invisible, just a thought, just a possibility, can feel heavier than the biggest weight in the world. I want to tell you a story. There was a guy I met named Daniel. Humble, soft-spoken, thoughtful. You could tell he carried a lot inside. And for 4 years, 4 long years, he kept a secret. He was in love with his best friend. She was there through everything. Heartbreaks, career changes, family chaos. She was his rock. And every day he'd feel it in his chest, the love, the pull, the wanting to tell her. But every time he tried, fear gripped his throat. What if she doesn't feel the same? What if I ruin what we have? What if she walks away? You ever been there? Feeling like if you speak your truth, you might lose everything? So Daniel stayed silent for 4 years, watching her date other guys, listening to her talk about them, nodding, smiling while dying inside. Then one day he hit a wall. He couldn't take the torment anymore. So he did something that changed everything. He grabbed a notebook and wrote down every fear he had about telling her, line by line, raw, honest, ugly. And then he went back and asked one simple question after each line. Is this a fact, or is this just a story I'm telling myself? What happened was almost poetic. He realized that 90% of his fear wasn't even based on reality. They were assumptions, insecurities, old wounds showing up as truth. Like that line, if I tell her I'll lose her forever. Fact? No, she never said that. It was a story. Another one, she'd never be into someone like me. Fact? No, just a self-judgment. That moment was his awakening. Because here's the truth, fear feeds on fiction. It needs you to believe the story without checking the facts. So Daniel, shaking and scared, finally told her. And you know what? She didn't feel the same. But here's the beautiful part. He didn't feel broken. He felt free. Free from the stories. Free from the what-ifs. Free from the prison of fear. See, fear only controls us when we don't challenge it. So here's what I want you to do the next time fear shows up. 1. Name it. Say it out loud. I'm afraid of by go. 2. Write it down. Get every single fear out of your head and onto paper. 3. Question it. Ask, is this a fact? Has this happened? Or am I creating a movie in my mind? 4. Breathe into the truth. Sit with what's real, not what's feared. Because the moment you shine the light of truth on fear, it starts to wither. It no longer owns you. Let me tell you something from the heart. Most of the fear that's been running your life, it's not even real. It's a ghost from the past. A story your mind made up to protect you. And while it might have helped once, it's not helping now. It's time to take back control. So I challenge you, today, sit down with your fear, look it in the eye, and ask the question that could set you free. What's actually true? Because once you do that, you'll realize that fear doesn't need to be fought. It just needs to be seen for what it is. A shadow that disappears in the light of truth. And once that happens, you stop running. You stop hiding. You stop playing small. And you start living fully, boldly, unapologetically. Secret number 2, courage is built in micro moments. Let's be honest for a second. Most of us think courage is this massive, dramatic thing, like standing on a stage in front of 1,000 people, or jumping out of a plane, or walking away from everything we've ever known. But the truth? Courage doesn't show up in loud, cinematic moments. It shows up in whispers, in the tiniest, almost invisible choices we make every single day. Let me tell you about someone I know, Amina. She was quiet, thoughtful, the kind of person who always sat in the back row, never raised her hand and smiled politely, just to avoid being noticed. But deep down, she had this fire in her. She wanted to speak, to lead, to inspire women like her who had been silenced by fear. But every time she thought about it, about sharing her voice online, creating content or stepping on stage, her stomach would twist. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. What if they laugh? What if I embarrass myself?
Sound familiar?
One day, after watching yet another motivational video from the sidelines, she broke, tears running down her face. She looked in the mirror and said something I'll never forget. I'm tired of being afraid of my own voice. So she did something tiny. She recorded a 1-minute video on her phone, just her talking about fear. Her voice shook. Her hands trembled, but she posted it. Guess how many people watched it? 7. 7 views. Probably her cousins, maybe a random scroll past. But that 1-minute video, it changed her entire trajectory. Because the next video came a little easier, then a little easier. Then she did a live. Then she got invited to speak at a workshop. Fast forward 2 years, Amina stood on a stage in front of 200 women, sharing her story, telling them how they are worthy, that they matter, that they're not broken. She cried on that stage because she knew that version of her, the one with trembling hands and a shaky voice, that was the most powerful version of her all along. You see, we wait for fear to go away. We think once I feel confident, then I'll act. But that's not how it works. Confidence is not the requirement. It's the result. Here's the secret. You don't need to be fearless to be brave. You just need to be willing. Willing to take one small step while still afraid. Let me break it down for you. Want to start a business? Don't wait to have it all figured out. Just create a logo or post your idea. Want to heal a relationship? Don't rehearse the perfect speech. Just send the message. Open the door. Want to express how you feel to someone you love? Don't wait for the perfect moment. Say one honest sentence. That's it. Because micro moments matter. They compound. They build momentum. And momentum is stronger than fear. Here's something powerful you need to hear. Every brave person you've ever admired is just someone who got really good at doing small scary things consistently. It wasn't a leap. It was a series of tiny, quiet steps taken in the dark until one day the light came on. So I want to ask you, what's one small action you can take today that your future self will thank you for? Maybe it's making the call. Maybe it's setting the boundary. Maybe it's saying I love you, or even I need help. Whatever it is, take the step. Because when you do, you teach your nervous system something powerful. We can survive this. That's how you build emotional resilience. That's how you rewire fear. Not by waiting for the big moment, but by mastering the small ones. I want you to imagine something. Picture yourself a year from now, more confident, more grounded, more peaceful, finally doing the things you used to dream about. How did you get there? It wasn't some dramatic one-time decision. It was dozens of tiny acts of courage that no one clapped for, no one filmed, no one shared. But you knew. You knew that every time you chose bravery over comfort, you were becoming the version of you that fear could no longer control. So take the step today, not tomorrow, not when you feel ready. Because the truth is, readiness is a lie. Fear tells you to keep you small. You are ready. Because you are here. Because you're listening to this right now. And because courage was never about the absence of fear. It was about choosing action anyway, even in the presence of it. Secret number 3, you are not your fear. Let me ask you something deeply personal. Have you ever said this to yourself? I'm just an anxious person. I'm always afraid of rejection. I'm not the kind of person who takes risks. If you have, I want you to pause for a second and listen closely. Because what you're saying isn't just a passing thought. It's a dangerous identity. You see, fear is something we experience, not something we are. But too many of us have blurred that line. We've worn our fears like name tags, introducing ourselves to the world with words like, I'm not confident, I'm not brave, I always mess things up. Let me tell you a story. There was a man named Hassan, brilliant mind, compassionate soul. He had this gift for creating beauty from chaos, through design, music, even storytelling. But every time he thought about putting himself out there, showing his work, sharing his ideas, he'd freeze. Not just hesitate, he'd completely shut down. When I asked him why, he said, I don't know. I've just always been that guy who chokes. It's who I am. Right there. That sentence, That was the real prison. It wasn't fear that was holding him hostage. It was identifying with fear. He had made fear his personality, his default setting, his truth. But here's what changed his life. One day during a session, I said to him, "Imagine if a storm passed through your house. Would you say, 'I am the storm'? No, you'd say, 'A storm came and went.' So why are you saying, 'I am my fear' instead of, 'I'm experiencing fear'?" That cracked something open in him. Because in that moment, he realized he'd been confusing a temporary feeling for a permanent identity. Let me say this to you directly. You are not your fear. You are the awareness beneath it. The observer watching it rise and fall. The soul that remains steady, even as emotions crash around you like waves. Think about when you feel afraid. Your hands sweat. Your chest tightens. Your thoughts race. But even as all of that happens, you're still here. Watching, noticing, feeling. That means you're not the fear. You're the one experiencing it. That space between you and the fear is your power. Because in that space, you have a choice. You can either let the fear define you, or you can witness it and let it pass. Now, I'm not saying this is easy. Fear is sneaky. It disguises itself as logic. It whispers things like, "Be realistic. It's better to stay quiet. Don't risk the pain." But when you learn to speak back, to remind yourself that fear is just a visitor, not a landlord, you take your power back. One of the greatest practices you can adopt is naming the fear without owning it. Instead of "I'm scared," try, "I'm noticing fear arise." Instead of "I'm a coward," try, "I'm experiencing resistance." Why does this matter? Because language creates reality. The words you use shape the identity you build. If you keep calling yourself weak, you'll start to believe it. And if you believe it long enough, you'll live like it. But if you can shift even slightly from identity to observation, you begin to rewrite your story. You stop seeing fear as a flaw and start seeing it as feedback, a signal, a part of being alive. Not a sign that something's wrong with you, but that something inside you wants to grow. Let me be real with you. Even the most fearless-looking people you admire, they feel it too. The speaker whose voice trembles before stepping on stage, the athlete who prays before the big game, the entrepreneur who throws up before every product launch. They're not fearless. They're just people who refuse to let fear define who they are, and you can do the same. So the next time fear creeps in, don't shame it. Don't resist it. And definitely don't wear it like a name tag. Just say, "Ah, there you are. I see you. You're not me. But you can walk beside me for a while if you need to." And then take the step anyway. Because fear might visit, but it doesn't get to drive. It doesn't get to steer your life. It doesn't get to decide your worth, your voice, your future. That belongs to you. Let this be the moment you stop calling yourself fearful and start calling yourself aware. Because when you see fear for what it is, just a signal, not an identity, you rise above it. You stop reacting. You start responding. And that is the birth of true power. Secret number 4, action is the antidote. Let's talk about something. Something we all wrestle with but rarely say out loud. You're afraid. You know you're afraid, but instead of moving forward, you freeze. You overthink. You scroll. You wait for a sign. You journal your plans, watch 10 motivational videos, talk to a friend, meditate on it. But the one thing you don't do? Act. And here's the thing nobody tells you. Fear doesn't die from thinking. Fear dies from doing. Let me share a real story. There was a guy named Omar, brilliant, deeply talented. He had a dream of starting his own design agency. For 3 years, he watched other people build businesses while he worked, a 9-to-5 job that drained his soul. He had the skills. He had the vision. He even had a name picked out. But you know what he didn't have? The courage to start. Every time he got close, something stopped him. What if I fail? What if no one hires me? What if I make a fool of myself? So he stayed in that job. And you know what fear did? It grew. It grew into anxiety, into procrastination, into sleepless nights and lost confidence, until one day he hit rock bottom. He was sitting in a meeting, presenting ideas to a boss who didn't even look up. The boss barely mumbled, "Yeah, that's fine," and then moved on. And Omar sat there thinking, I'm pouring my life into building someone else's dream, while mine is dying inside of me. That night, he didn't write another plan. He didn't consult 10 more people. He did something terrifying but real. He registered his business. He had no clients, no roadmap, no guarantee. But he took the step. That single action? It broke the grip of fear. Because the moment you act, you reclaim your power. Let me tell you what fear really is. Fear is the brain's natural way of protecting you from the unknown. It's not evil. It's ancient. It whispers, don't go there. It's unfamiliar. It's risky. But here's the twist. Your brain can't tell the difference between real danger and emotional growth. It reacts the same. To a lion in the jungle and launching a business or expressing your love. So what do? You take action anyway. Not because you're fearless, but because you refuse to let fear be the driver of your destiny. Let me ask you something. How many years have you lost thinking instead of doing? How many opportunities have you watched slip away because you were waiting to feel ready? Newsflash. You will never feel ready. Readiness is not a feeling, it's a choice. Action doesn't follow confidence. Confidence follows action. That's how it works. The first video you record will be awkward. The first love letter you write might feel cheesy. The first time you set a boundary, your voice might tremble. But that's the point. You do it scared. You act, even when the fear is there. Because action is the antidote. And here's a powerful truth I want you to tattoo on your heart. Motion creates emotion. You want to feel strong? Move. Take the step. Send the message. Post the project. Speak the truth. Even a small action done with courage can shift your entire nervous system from paralysis to power. Here's a challenge I want you to try. Pick the one thing you've been afraid to do, not the big thing, just one tiny action. If you've been afraid to speak up, say one sentence of truth today. If you've been afraid to start, open the website builder. If you've been afraid to leave a toxic relationship, journal why you deserve more. Don't think, don't plan, just move. Because fear is like a shadow. It looks huge when you stand still, but when you walk toward it, it shrinks. You know what the most successful, peaceful people have in common? They don't let fear control their feet. They walk forward anyway. They learn by doing. They trust that clarity comes after action, not before it. And you can do the same. So right now, decide not to be perfect, not to be fearless, just to take the next step. Because every single step you take while afraid is a vote for your future. A message to your mind that says, I lead, fear follows. And eventually, fear will realize it has no control over someone who keeps moving. Secret number 5, your future is braver than your past. Let's take a deep breath together for a moment. Because this isn't just the final secret. It's the one your soul has been quietly longing to hear. You've been afraid. You've been stuck. You've been told 1,000 times by life, by others, maybe even by your own thoughts, that you'll always be this way. But hear me when I say this. Your past doesn't get to decide your future. Your future belongs to the version of you that chooses something different. That speaks louder than fear. That rises even when shaking. That believes in healing, growth, change, even if no one else ever taught you how. Let me tell you about Layla. She was in her early 30s. On the outside, she had it together. A stable job, a few close friends, a warm smile. But inside, she was haunted by the echo of her past. A childhood full of yelling, fear, instability. Teen years marked by betrayal, heartbreak, abandonment. Every time she tried to trust, to grow, to build something new, her brain would whisper, don't get too excited. Remember what happened last time? People like you don't get happy endings. She lived with that script looping in her head every day. It shaped her relationships, her goals, even how she walked into a room. Until one evening she was journaling, just scribbling thoughts into a notebook. And she wrote something simple, something powerful, something true. I am tired of reliving pain I didn't deserve. That sentence was her awakening, because she realized she was dragging her past into every room she entered, carrying wounds that didn't belong in her present, fighting wars that were already over. And worst of all, she believed those old stories were who she was, but they weren't. They were just moments. Moments that shaped her, yes, but not moments that get to define her. She decided that night to write a new story, not with words, but with actions. She started therapy. She apologized to herself for staying silent so long. She stopped chasing people who didn't see her. And she started doing one brave thing every week, big or small. You wouldn't recognize her now, not because her life is perfect, but because she stopped letting fear narrate it. And I share her story because maybe you're still carrying your own. The heartbreak, the abandonment, the failure, the time you spoke up and got shut down, The time you tried and fell flat. The love you gave that got thrown back at you. It's all heavy, I know. But it's not you. It's just what happened to you. Let me say this with love. Stop treating your history like your destiny. You are not bound by the mistakes you made when you didn't know better. You are not stuck in cycles unless you keep choosing them. You are not unworthy of peace just because you've lived in chaos. Your future isn't asking for your resume of pain. It's asking for your commitment to rise, to believe that the person you're becoming is stronger than the person you've been. Let me offer a new way to see yourself. You're not broken. You're healing. You're not behind. You're building. You're not weak. You're walking through the fire and still showing up. That's not failure. That's courage. And here's the thing, fear, it thrives in the past. It feeds off old wounds, old patterns, old stories. But when you start living for the future version of you, the one who's free, grounded whole, fear loses its grip. So today, I want you to do something powerful. Picture your future self.
What do they look like?
What do they know now that you're still learning? What kind of peace do they carry? What kind of people surround them? How do they speak, walk, live, love? Now ask yourself, what would that version of me do today? Would they let fear win again? Would they keep playing small? Or would they step just one foot closer to that life? You don't have to be there yet, but you do have to start walking. One boundary, one decision, one act of self-respect, one rejection of the old script. Because your future doesn't arrive like magic. It's built, brick by brick, with every brave choice you make in the present. And if you take nothing else from this video, remember this. You are allowed to outgrow the version of you that fear created, and you are worthy of the version of you that love is still building. Let that truth guide you. Let it break the chains. Let it remind you that fear is not your home. It was just a place you passed through. Because the future, it belongs to the you who dares to step forward, not when it's easy, but when it matters, and it matters now. If you've made it this far, I want to say something not as a narrator, but as someone who deeply understands what fear can do to a soul. Fear has stolen enough from you, enough sleepless nights, enough held back words, enough moments you should have said yes but said nothing, enough love you didn't let in, enough dreams you tucked away because someone, maybe even your own voice, told you you're not enough. But today, you chose to listen. You chose truth. You chose you. And that alone makes you braver than you were yesterday. These 5 secrets weren't just information. They were reminders. Reminders that you're not alone. That your fear doesn't define your future. That action will always, always carry you further than avoidance. And that there's a version of you waiting on the other side of fear. A version who is free, fulfilled, and fully alive. You may still be scared. That's okay. But if you remember just one thing, let it be this. Fear doesn't mean stop. Fear means grow. So grow. Speak. Act. Heal. Love. Break the cycle. Your future self is already proud of you for choosing courage one step at a time. And I'm proud of you too. With that said, thanks for watching. And until next time.